Good evening. I'll call to order first the Arvada Housing Authority meeting for April 2nd, 2018. We'll call upon Christian Rush to do the roll call.
Chairman Mark Williams.
Here.
Vice Chair John Marriott.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Pfeiffer.
Here.
Commissioner Nancy Ford.
Here.
Commissioner David Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Mark McGough.
Here.
Commissioner Dot Miller.
Here.
Next, we have the approval of the minutes of the December 4th, 2017 meeting of the Housing Authority. Do I see any changes or corrections? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address us as the Housing Authority, not as the City Council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the reports of the Secretary.
I have no reports for you this evening, Mr. Chairman.
And we have no committee reports, correct?
That's correct.
And we have no unfinished business, correct?
There's always unfinished business. It's been done for you tonight.
Very good. You do have one item of new business.
Yes, we do. And in the interest of time, I'm going to be fairly brief. I believe you did receive a short description that was in your newsletter. It was entitled Homeless Housing Proposal for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. And if you did, I'm going to dispense with probably going into the details unless you have questions. One thing I would like to do before I just make a few comments is I would like to make an introduction. Carrie, if you could come up. This is Carrie Espinosa. She's my Section 8 housing supervisor, and I want to provide credit to her for a lot of the work and the idea that's come up on this opportunity. She's the one really running with it with the Section 8 staff for this opportunity we have. So I want to give her that recognition and obviously introduce her to you.
Very good.
So what we have is just briefly, we're looking at an amendment to the administrative plan for the Housing Authority. Essentially, this is to provide a preference, some reorganization of our preferences for the program, but provide a preference for homeless families that allow us to work with Mean Street Ministry, which is the focus of the discussion in that paper I just referenced to you in terms of how we'll be able to assist and help with additional funding we're getting, as was explained, hopefully around 17 or so currently homeless families that are at Mean Street Ministry, or were, because they did shut their doors at the end of March. So we're trying to obviously fast track this to get assistance into their hands so they can secure safe and quality housing for them. And unless there's questions in the sake of time, I just have nothing else, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion. There are no questions. Mr. McGough.
I am ready for a motion.
You may proceed.
I move that the revisions to the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program Administrative Plan for the City of Arvada Housing Authority be adopted.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. And you have no other business?
That's all I have, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
So we are now adjourning as the Arvada Housing Authority. We'll put on our other hats and pretend to be the City Council. I'll call to order the Arvada City Council meeting for April 2nd, 2018. Call upon Mayor Pro Tem John Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to start us off with a moment of silent reflection. And now, if I could have Boy Scout Troops 103 and 506 come on up to the podium and please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will the audience please rise? Those not in uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Scouts, salute.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. The audience may be seated.
And Scouts, we've got a number of you here, but if you'll come down to the podium and tell us your name and what school you go to. And if you're working on a badge tonight, what badge you're working on. And if there's any parents that want to get a picture, feel free to come down.
My name is Porter Carden. I am age 11 and I am homeschooled actually. And we are working on the sustainability badge? Citizenship. I can't say anything today. Citizenship of the World badge.
Very good.
My name is Mark Redford. I go to Hackberry Hill Elementary School, and I think we speak for everybody here that we're working on the Citizenship Merit Badge.
Okay.
I'm Aiden Dower, and I am 13 years old. I go to Drake Middle School, and still all working on the citizenship badge.
Great.
Citizenship.
I'm Benjamin Holmes. I'm 13 years old, and I go to Excel Academy Charter School.
My name is Carson Welling. I am 11 years old, and I go to Stott Elementary School.
Great hair.
I am Preston Cornelson. I am 12 years old, and I go to Fremont Elementary.
I'm Alex Dixon. I'm 13 years old, and I go to Drake Middle School.
My name is Carter Johnson. I am 13 years old, and I go to A West High School.
My name is Cooper Stamps, and I go to Compass Montessori, and I'm 13.
I'm Levi Setlin. I go to Excel Academy, and I'm 13.
I'm Noah Phillips. I am 12 and I go to Fairmount Elementary.
I'm Ryan Burnister. I am 14, and I'm working on communication and citizenship in the community, and currently I go to Faith Christian Academy.
My name is Zach Morris. I am 13, and I go to Faith Christian, and I'm working on communications and citizenship in the community.
I'm Christian Large, and I go to Faith Christian Academy. I'm 14, and I'm working on communications.
I'm Michael Arnett. I am 14, and I am currently working on communications.
I'm Sammy Tompkins. I'm 14, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
I'm Josh Morris. I go to Faith Christian Academy. I'm 13, and I'm working on citizenship in the community and communications.
I'm Denton Thigpen. I'm 17. I go to Faith Christian, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
My name is Keith Puz. I go to Faith Christian Academy. I am 14 years old, and I am working on citizenship in the community.
I'm Ben Heropoulos. I'm 15. I go to A West, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
I'm Samuel Hedrick. I'm 16. I go to A West, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
Great. Well, let's thank all these Scouts for being here tonight. A great rendition of the pledge, and I want to thank the Scout leaders who work with these young men and help give them some great guidance. Kristen, will you please do the roll call?
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Marriott?
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Here.
Councilmember Ford?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember McGough?
Here.
Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Next, we have the minutes of the March 19th City Council meeting. Do I see any changes or corrections? Seeing none, they'll stand approved as presented. We do have a few proclamations tonight. I'll call upon Councilmember David Jones to lead us off.
Thank you. It's my honor to be able to present this proclamation tonight on behalf of the Ralston House. Let me read just a couple of things here. The City of Arvada is proud to partner with the Ralston House Child Advocacy Center in recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month on behalf of the many children who were interviewed at the Ralston House in 2017, as well as the children and teens who are suspected of being sexually or physically abused. These children and their families directly benefit from the family-friendly care provided at the Ralston House in 2017 and beyond. The Ralston House provides comprehensive services to child victims and their families as they begin the healing process after traumatic experiences. During the month of April, our community joins with those who have suffered abuse by planting pinwheel gardens of hope. The fundraising goal for 2018 is $60,000, which will be raised from large community gardens and from selling individual pinwheels. As our streets and neighborhoods become planted with pinwheels, we encourage all Arvada citizens to join in renewing our commitment to preventing child abuse and learning what we can do to promote the safety and well-being of the children. As I read the proclamation, if Tara Rosner will come to the podium. Whereas, although every child deserves to grow up in a nurturing environment free from harm and fear, all children do not receive appropriate care. In fact, too many children become victims at the hands of abusive predators. And whereas Arvada has dedicated individuals and organizations who work daily to counter the problem of child abuse and to help parents obtain the assistance they need. And whereas our community is stronger when all citizens become aware of child abuse prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs such as the Ralston House succeed because of partnerships among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas the City of Arvada collaborates with the Ralston House to provide services which address child abuse prevention, including the Pinwheel for Prevention campaign every April. And whereas all citizens, community agencies, faith organizations, and businesses will work to increase their efforts to support families. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mayor and the Arvada City Council hereby designate the month of April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. We encourage all Arvada citizens to join in renewing our commitment to preventing child abuse through awareness and action. Every responsible person will agree that even one abused child is too many. Dated April 2nd, 2018, signed by Mayor Mark Williams and all members of council. I'll come down and present this.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, residents of Arvada. On behalf of Ralston House, the Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers were honored to join the City of Arvada in proclaiming April 2018 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Last year, Ralston House served 1,226 youth with our four-county reach: Jefferson, Gilpin, Adams, and Broomfield counties. We provide free services to children and teens victimized by sexual or physical abuse. Ralston House has great partnerships with local law enforcement, human services, and district attorney's offices in both the 1st Judicial District and the 17th. Services include forensic interviews, medical exams, victim advocacy, multidisciplinary case reviews. We have community education and outreach, prevention and training programs, all again at no cost. This year, we will plant 1,226 pinwheels in 6 large gardens. These will be, and you can see them at the Super Credit Union in Lakewood, in Westminster at Front Range Community College, at the Jefferson County Human Services site, North Glen High School, Broomfield Public Library, and Faith Bible Chapel in Arvada. These represent each child who was brave enough to come forward and tell their story. Locally, we've partnered with almost 200 businesses, schools, medical offices, police and sheriff departments, faith-based organizations, and various special districts to plant smaller gardens in an effort to share the message of hope and healing to all those children who are now no longer victims, but survivors. The bright blue pinwheel is a symbol of child abuse prevention across the nation. It's because of the generosity and compassion of communities like Arvada, our most ardent supporter, you need to know, that each and every one of these kids and teens has a voice. I want to close by saying that crimes against children cases are unique and challenging. Our organization has been honored to receive proclamations from many of the cities we serve, and now from Arvada. Thank you for helping to bring justice to the most vulnerable. The very last line of the Pledge of Allegiance that we just recited reads, "And justice for all." If everyone here tonight would hold on to a new meaning when they recite the pledge, perhaps for the remainder of April, justice for the 1,226, and justice for those still out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I'll call upon Councilmember Mark McGough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is my honor to present the proclamation for the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And ask that Colleen Amon, is she here? If you'd come to the podium as I read this proclamation. First of all, the week of April 8 through 14, 2018 is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. This week is dedicated to recognizing the hard work and dedication that the 911 call takers and dispatchers provide every day. These personnel are the unseen link allowing citizens to receive assistance they require in a time of need. The proclamation that I will present reads as follows. Whereas the continued vitality of the city of Arvada depends upon having safe homes, neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces throughout our community, and whereas the employees of the Arvada Police Department are dedicated to delivering the highest quality police response strategies and professional police services to citizens, and whereas efficient, concise communications are essential to all police response strategies, and whereas the delivery of quality police services are dependent on public safety dispatchers receiving and disseminating critical information 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Arvada that April 8 through 14, 2018 be proclaimed as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Arvada, and urge all citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, and businesses to recognize that public safety dispatchers perform a crucial service to this community and to the operation of our police department. This proclamation is dated the second day of April 2018 and is signed by Mayor Mark Williams and all members of council. And I'll bring this proclamation to you.
I promise just a few words. So my name is Colleen Iman, and I've worked in the 911 business for over 28 years. And as you all may or may not know, this is the historical year for Jefferson County. We moved our communications center on March the 21st. It was successful. We also are waiting for Lakewood and Evergreen to move theirs this week, and that will complete all 8 agencies regionalizing. Arvada is proud of the dispatchers that we sent to JeffCom. They do set the higher standard. They're there when the officers need them. They're there when the citizens need them. And I got to tell you, a group of amazing people that just went through a very, very challenging year. But I can tell you, they really stand out in JeffCom as wanting to be the first there, the first on the phone, and they work sacrificing hours and hours with their families because they're 24/7. This year is the 50th anniversary for 911. The first 911 call was made 50 years ago in Huntsville, Alabama. And so it's just been an exciting business. I mean, it's been exciting to see the industry move and grow and look for ways to better help people in emergency situations and help the officers during the incidences. But this is truly an honor. And even though you don't maybe see the dispatchers, just remember they're there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll call upon Councilmember Dot Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I have the honor of presenting the proclamation for National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And if I could have Judy Maxwell, a volunteer at Victim Outreach, to come down to receive this proclamation. The week of April 8th through 14th will be recognized as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. This week is an opportunity to acknowledge and strive to bring justice to victims of crime throughout the nation. This year's theme is to expand the circle and to reach all victims, emphasizing the importance of inclusion in victim services. The theme of expanding the circle hopes to address how the victims field can better ensure that every crime victim has access to services and support, and how professionals, organizations, and communities can work in tandem to reach all victims. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Americans are the victims of more than 20 million crimes each year affecting individuals and communities, and whereas providing victims with knowledge of their rights and available services further strengthens their ability to recover by restoring a sense of self-empowerment, and whereas a trauma-informed response to victims promotes healing and fosters strength in survivors, and unaddressed trauma from victimization weakens the resilience of victims and their communities, impeding their ability to withstand future trauma. And whereas victims who feel understood and supported are more likely to disclose their victimization, seek services, and participate in the justice process. And whereas a multidisciplinary response involving collaboration among victim services professionals, criminal justice officials, legal professionals, medical and mental health providers, and community leaders is essential to reach and serve all victims, especially those who are marginalized, have disabilities, or live in remote locations. And whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 8th through 14th, 2018, provides an opportunity to recommit to ensuring that all victims of a crime, especially those who are challenging to reach or serve, are afforded their rights and receive a trauma-informed response. And whereas the City of Arvada is hereby dedicated to strengthening victims and survivors in the aftermath of a crime, building resilience in our communities and our victims' responders, and working for justice for all victims and survivors. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and members of City Council that April 8th through the 14th, 2018 is National Crime Victims' Rights Week in Arvada, Colorado. Dated the second day of April 2018, signed by the Mayor and members of Council. I'll bring it down to you, Ms. Maxwell.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much. It means an awful lot to work with the city and the police department of Arvada. In September, it will be 10 years that we've had the privilege of working with the police department. And we've had a wonderful partnership with the law enforcement. And to get the victims the help that they need and the services that they need. At the end of this week, we will have the 25th Annual Courage Walk, which I have some brochures and I'll leave them here. We would love to have all of you come and join us. It will be held up at the courthouse on the front steps, and it's just a nice way of honoring those that are victims of Jefferson County and Gilpin counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem John Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's with great pleasure I get to read a proclamation for Volunteer Month. May I have representatives from organizations serving Arvada come on down to the podium. Organizations Serving Arvada, a committee of the Arvada Chamber of Commerce, asks us to imagine the impact if we all came together to accomplish 52,000 hours of community service. The committee recognizes that through the power of many, we can achieve big results. April 2018 marks the 4th year that Organizations Serving Arvada has challenged residents, businesses, and community organizations to volunteer in the community during National Volunteer Month. In 2017, the challenge resulted in over 20,000 hours of service. The 2018 challenge has set a goal of 25,000 hours. Participants can visit www.arvadachamber.org to get ideas and log their hours. Participants who log hours will be eligible to win $500 provided by the Super Credit Union Foundation to donate to the winner's charity of choice. I'd like to read this proclamation. It says, whereas organizations serving Arvada, a committee of the Arvada Chamber of Commerce, is a committed group of nonprofit and business professionals who are interested in telling the story of our local nonprofit community through collaboration and awareness. And whereas April 2018 will mark the 4th year that organizations serving Arvada is challenging community members to volunteer in Arvada. April is National Volunteer Month, and in 2017, Arvada residents, businesses, and community organizations donated over 20,000 volunteer hours. And whereas this year, the goal is to log 25,000 volunteer hours during the month of April, participants can log their hours between April 1st and April 30th. And whereas participants can volunteer with any Arvada nonprofit of their choice or help a neighbor in need, and whereas organizations serving Arvada hopes that through the Arvada Volunteer Challenge, people will recognize that through the power of many, we can achieve big results. Participants who log hours will be eligible to win $500 provided by Super Credit Union Foundation to donate to the winner's charity of choice. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Arvada City Council declares April 2018 as Volunteer Month in Arvada, and it's dated the 2nd day of April 2018, signed by Mayor Williams and all members of City Council. And I'll bring it down to you.
Thank you so much for having us. We are asking the citizens of Arvada to be part of the energy as we come together for 1 month to reach the 25,000 hour goal. Somebody said this earlier, Arvada is such a compassionate community, and we're so lucky to be here. Through the power of many, we can make real change. We're asking the citizens of Arvada to do 3 things. One is to give back. If you need a list of ideas on how to do that, you can go to arvadachamber.org, and we have some listed there for you. And it's not just volunteering through a nonprofit. We mentioned in the proclamation that it can be just helping a neighbor. Any sort of helping hand that you can give through the month of April. The second is to keep track. You can record your hours through arvadachamber.org, and as mentioned, $500 will be given by the Super Credit Union, and the winner will get to choose what charity that money goes to. And then the last one is share. If you want to share your photos of good deeds on social media, you can use hashtag GetInvolvedArvada. Thank you.
And if I could have representatives from the Parkinson's community come down. I know we've got a few. They reached out to me to chat about this matter. It's something that I know a little bit about through my wife's work when she was executive director of the Colorado Neurological Institution. Parkinson's disease is the 2nd most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. Symptoms vary from person to person, and the exact cause is still unknown. As research continues, new technologies and treatments are being approved. In Arvada, Pedaling for Parkinson's hosts an indoor cycling class at the Apex Center. Parkinson's-specific exercise programs are offered at the Apex Center and the Duncan Family YMCA, and Home Watch Caregivers host the Arvada Parkinson's Support Group. Now I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic and progressive disorder with debilitating physical and mental effects, and is the 2nd most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States, and whereas it is estimated that more than 10 million people worldwide are living with Parkinson's, of which over 1 million are Americans, and that approximately 17,000 reside in Colorado, and whereas the symptoms vary from person to person and can include tremors, slowness of movement and rigidity, difficulty with balance, swallowing, chewing, and speaking, and cognitive impairment, And whereas although new medicines and therapies may enhance life for some time for people with Parkinson's, at present there is no cure. And whereas increased education and research are needed to help find more effective treatments with fewer side effects and ultimately a cure for Parkinson's, and whereas a multidisciplinary approach to Parkinson's disease care includes local wellness, support, and caregiver groups, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Arvada, Colorado, that April 2018 be designated Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month, dated the second day of April 2018, signed by all of us on the City Council.
On behalf of the citizens of Arvada who are impacted by Parkinson's disease, we gratefully acknowledge this proclamation declaring April 2018 as Parkinson's Awareness Month. Every day, people right here in Arvada give their time to help those with Parkinson's live better. You mentioned a few of them, I'll mention a couple more that are not far away, the Davis Finney Foundation in Boulder, and the Parkinson's Association of the Rockies, who's also joined us here this evening, Regis University and the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center. They all conduct vital research with assistance from many of us with Parkinson's who participate in an amazing array of clinical trials. But much of this starts right here with the recognition and support of our community and our civic leaders. So once again, we are honored to receive this proclamation. We thank you for your thoughtful consideration and your continued leadership.
Well, thank you to all the individuals being recognized tonight as part of what great things get done here in Arvada. Next, we have public comment on items not scheduled on our agenda. I'll have Nina, Sharon, and Jennifer from the Festivals Commission come forward. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us this evening. My name is Nina Piccinini, and I'm a board member with the Arvada Festivals Commission, and also the chair of our Kite Festival, which we're going to take a couple minutes to chat with you about. And also, I'll let my fellow board members introduce themselves.
I'm Sharon Conan from the Festivals Commission and co-chair for the Kite Festival.
And I'm Jennifer Camps, Arvada Festivals Commission, and I'm co-chair for the High Tea.
Thank you. So we'd just like to invite you all to the Kite Festival, which is going to take place this Sunday, the 8th, at Stanger Field from 10 to 3, and we're just planning a great event. Last year, it was estimated that we had 18,000 people in attendance, so it's just something where the community comes out. We often refer to it as our welcome to spring because we've all been indoors all winter, and it's really the first event from our festival where we can get outside, fly some kites, and really come together with our neighbors. So as far as activities, of course, we'll have kite flying. The Rocky Mountain Kite Association, they will be out there. They'll be having demonstrations, kids activities, and of course it's very important to us to make sure all of those activities are always free, so just a ton of stuff going on this year. One of the new additions that we're going to be adding is we have a canvas art wall, and essentially what we're doing there is we're letting the community come out and paint on this art wall. So, and it's something that we'll be taking from event to event. So Arvada on Tap, Arvada Days, all of the events will be showing just all of our local artists here, so our neighbors. So hope you all can come out and join us, and we definitely still need volunteers for the event. So given that it's volunteer month, we'd be happy to have anybody here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who's going to provide an update on our recent High Tea for Seniors.
Thank you. So on March 10th, we hosted our High Tea for Seniors. That's for anyone in the community of 90 years or older. We had a resident that joined us who's been coming for 10 years, so they had just turned 100 years old. Our theme was kind of glamour Hollywood from the 1920s and 30s. We had a Frank Sinatra impersonator, And then we had different levels of snacks and high tea for them to all enjoy. We had about 115 turnout.
Great.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
you
Well,
all
thank
very
you all
much.
for what you do for us with this.
Thank you.
Next call on Mindy Moore.
Good evening. I'm, as I said, Mindy Moore with Arvadans for Progressive Action, and I had emailed my comments to you earlier today, but I did want to say them for the public record. We understand that later in the agenda there will be a hearing on an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the establishment of self-storage businesses. My comments are not related to that other than to note that the city appears to have the legal authority to impose a 180-day moratorium on building these self-storage businesses while the city evaluates the potential impacts to property, public health, safety, and welfare due to the influx of such businesses. Over the last several years, there has similarly been an influx of applications for new residential developments. At each council discussion or workshop, we hear the preliminary sketch plans or PDPs for these new developments. We've heard concerns about traffic and inadequate roads. We also have heard about the lack of other infrastructure for services such as schools or grocery stores. There's also a lack of truly affordable housing near these new developments for the workers in those critical service industries. Many Arvada workers in service industries have to, right now, drive from far away from more affordable areas. Without adequate infrastructure like roads and essential services, there are likewise potential impacts to property, public health, safety, and welfare. Therefore, we're asking if the city will consider imposing a similar ordinance for a temporary moratorium on new residential developments. This could be imposed just until the Land Development Code updates are completed, and it could exempt, for example, any development where at least a portion of the housing for sale or for rent, if allowable by law, is to provide workforce housing. That's an infrastructure need, and that could meet the federal definition of affordable housing. By putting a temporary pause on these developments, the infrastructure needs can be evaluated and planned for in the revised Land Development Code, and the city can further evaluate the potential impacts to our rapidly growing area. This would exemplify smart development for Arvada. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your thoughts. Next, Pat Osnes.
Thank you, folks, for taking a moment. 2 weeks ago, I stopped by to inform you about some stuff going on with the Timberline Farms project and about where there were storm drains left undone. There was a dam being built across the floodplain. There was a number of things going on, equipment running 24/7. And when I approached, I've been working with some of the people here in Arvada, and basically they told me that the only thing that they were going to do anymore is to have me file suit. And Mayor Williams, you suggested that the town would be getting a hold of me and trying to rectify some of these things, and nothing's happened. And since then, my water wells have been compromised, and I've got that to deal with because of this project. So the things that can happen from here on are getting, dwindling down quite a bit. And I would hope that the city would have responded, but apparently they didn't heed your warning, sir.
I'll direct staff to please get back in touch with Mr. Osnes. I apologize that no one has up to this point. So,
I don't think it was your problem, sir.
Well, it becomes our problem.
Well,
certainly,
if property values are affected and we're getting into rainy season, things start happening, and if our storm drains are left occluded and the floodplain is left dammed up, who knows what's going to happen from there?
Okay. We owe you a response. You'll get one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Darren Heyman.
Good evening. Thank you for a few moments tonight. As we've heard, April is a month full of wonderful events, and again, this year, one of those events is the Arvada Car Care Fest. I'm coming to speak a little bit about the 4th annual Arvada Car Care Fest. It will be held on Saturday, April 14th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Sancio Office Complex at 5630 Ward Road. The fest will be similar in some ways to how it's been done in the past, but there's lots of exciting new aspects to this year's Car Care Fest. This year, we again invite members of City Council to be honorary judges at the fest, and instructions on how to participate as a judge will be on a giveaway that I have for each one of you at the end. As was the case in previous years, there's no entry fee to put your car in the fest, and it's free to the public. And again, this year we expect to have over 250 classic cars and hundreds of spectators there. Again, this year visitors will be able to get tips from professional automotive technicians on how to care for their personal cars. But this year we have many things that are completely new to the Car Care Fest. First, the Arvada Car Care Fest is proud to partner with the Ralston House Child Advocacy Center and will be collecting donations from attendees, with the proceeds going to help Ralston House and their incredible work. New this year is the opportunity for cars to be pre-registered in the show. Pre-registration is not required, but those cars will be entered into a door prize drawing. The website for pre-registration and other information is arvadacarcarefest.com. And this year we'll be giving goodie bags with dash plaques to the first 250 cars at the show. New this year, not only can classic cars win prizes at the Car Care Fest, but spectators can participate in a scavenger hunt to win prizes as well. The kids can enjoy a free bouncy house this year at the Car Care Fest, along with the face painting and balloon tying activities that will be there to keep the young ones interested. And finally, another new addition to the fest will be that one of the Denver Police Museum's vintage police cars will be on display. So it's an opportunity to see a car that you do not want to miss. So what has made the fest successful in years past will be combined with many new aspects to create the 2018 Arvada Car Care Fest, which is Saturday, April 14th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 5630 Ward Road. And with permission, I have dash plaque giveaways for members of City Council.
Great. Thank you. It's a fun event every year. I urge people to come attend some great-looking cars. David Palm.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Excuse me. I don't know how long you have to have been in Arvada before you realize that there are two Wadsworths. The bypass has been here since the 1950s. On January 22nd, Council heard public testimony on the $30 land project, followed by a motion from Mr. McGough that Old Town Residences Preliminary Development Plan 5565 Wadsworth Bypass be approved. Council rejected that 4-3. In spite of what appears to be a violation of the city charter, the Trammell Crow project was heard again on March 19th. After public comment and a lengthy presentation of the project, Mr. McGough again made a motion that Old Town Residences Preliminary Development Plan 5565 Wadsworth Boulevard be approved. Council approved the motion 6-1. Here's the problem. All of the legal notices, hearings, motions, votes for the January 22nd City Council meeting, where the matter was rejected, were for a property located at 5565 Wadsworth Bypass. All of the legal notices, hearings, motions, and votes for the March 19th City Council meeting, 2 weeks ago, where the matter was approved, were for a property located at 5565 Wadsworth Boulevard. If you check the minutes from that meeting that you just approved, you'll find it at the bottom of page 16 and the top of page 17. This project has been flawed from the very beginning. At this point, the Urban Renewal Authority and Trammell Crow need to start over at square one. And this time, do everything out in the open and in the best interest of the citizens and not the developers. Trammell Crow has said that they would pay market price for that land if they were allowed to build something feasible. Why not cut our losses, take the money, and run? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, we'll move on to new business. We have two items on the consent agenda. The first is a resolution authorizing a construction contract between Arvada and Diamond Contracting Corporation for 2018 water main replacement and sanitary sewer main installation in an amount not to exceed approximately $3,364,000. The second is a resolution accepting annexation petition concerning Dylan Walker, 6315 Quaker Street, finding said petition substantially compliant with State Statute 3112-1071, setting a public hearing for May 7, 2018, 6:30 p.m. in Arvada City Hall for City Council to determine whether the area meets the requirements of State Statute 3112-104 and 105 and is considered eligible for annexation. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that R 18-035 and R 18-036 be approved.
Motions for approval of the consent agenda. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have ordinance on first reading. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that R 18-03, oops, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong one. Hang on. Oh, heck. Give me 1 second. I had it a minute ago.
That's why some of us still use paper.
Yes, you are right.
Oh, did they?
Okay. Hang on. Goodness gracious, where to go? Got it in front of you.
Sure, let me give you a paper copy.
Thank you. I need one more. There we go. Okay, thank you. I move that Council Bill 18-015, an ordinance authorizing an additional appropriation for fiscal year 2018, be approved on first reading, ordered published in full, and a public hearing set for April 16, 2018 at 6:30 p.m.
Motions for approval on first reading. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Next, we've got some appointments and a presentation, and then we're going to move, with everyone's agreement, the appointments to the Old Town Business Improvement District to later in the agenda. So with that, let's do the appointments to boards and commissions. Yeah, let's just start down with Mr. McGough and move on through.
Yes, first of all, Arvada Arts and Culture Commission, I move to reappoint Pete Simon to the Arvada Arts and Culture Commission for a 4-year term ending April 30, 2022.
Motions to reappoint Pete Simon. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Next, Ms. Ford.
I move to reappoint Michael Sillo to the Arvada Deferred Compensation Plan Board for a 4-year term ending April 30, 2022.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Mr. Pfeiffer.
I move to reappoint Matthew Salmond to the Arvada Executive Defined Contribution Retirement Plan Board for a 4-year term ending April 30th, 2022.
Mr. Jones, if you'll vote. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Mr. Marriott.
I move to appoint Cable Coffee, Richard Harney, and Patricia Danson to the Arvada Festivals Commission for unexpired terms ending April 30th, 2019, and Robert Corsi, Kate Burke, Krista Floria, and Carol Chung to the Arvada Festivals Commission for unexpired terms ending April 30th, 2020, and Emily King, Joseph Hingstetler, Loretta Bozeman, and Michael Bozeman to the Arvada Festivals Commissions for 3-year terms ending April 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Charles Jones, Eric Gavami, Reagan Robertson, Tara Rosner, and Andrea Samuelson to the Arvada Festivals Commission for 3-year terms ending April 30th, 2021.
All votes are cast. That passes unanimously. Dot Miller.
I move to reappoint Kevin Bonich to the Arvada Liquor Licensing Authority for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. And I will move that to reappoint Alan Parker to the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority for a 5-year term ending April 30th, 2023. I'll call upon Mr. Jones.
And I move to ratify Mayor Williams' reappointment of Alan Parker to the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority for a 5-year term ending April 30th, 2023.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Let's go back to Mr. McGough.
I move to reappoint Tom Alinovich and Stephanie McCabe to the Board of Adjustment for 3-year terms ending April 30, 2021.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Should we also at this time do the one we had this evening? Okay, great. Nancy Ford.
I move to appoint Barbara Kaufman to the Board of Adjustment for an unexpired term ending April 30, 2019.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. And Mr. Pfeiffer.
She did, our Board of Adjustments.
She did the
Okay,
additional Board of Adjustment.
Building Code Advisory Board, I move to appoint Jim Johansson to the Board Code Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Kent Sparky Shriver and John Blake Tomlinson to the Building Code Advisory Board for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
That passes 7-0. Thank you.
I move to reappoint William Cheever as the at-large representative to the Design Review Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
And that passes 7-0. Thank you. Ms. Miller?
I move to appoint Leticia Overholt to the Golf Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Brian Bailey and Ryan Prue to the Golf Advisory Committee for 3-year terms ending April 30th, 2021.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Mr. Jones?
I move to appoint Laura Andes to the Human Services Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2020, and Heather Arnold Reinker, and Robert Slay to the Human Services Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Tom Reynolds to the Human Services Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
Okay, all votes are cast. That passes unanimously. Back to Mr. McGough.
Yes, I move to appoint Melissa Lloyd to the Park Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending April 30, 2020, and Abby McNeil and Stacy Parcell to the Park Advisory Committee for 3-year terms ending April 30, 2021, and to reappoint Edward Johnson, Michael Miller, and Britta Nelson to the Park Advisory Committee for 3-year terms ending April 30, 2021.
All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Next, I move to reappoint David Goff and Michael Griffith to the Planning Commission for 4-year terms ending April 30th, 2022. Ms. Ford?
I move to ratify Mayor Williams' reappointment of David Goff and Michael Griffith to the Planning Commission for 4-year terms ending April 30, 2022. Should I do the next one?
I need your vote on this one first.
Okay.
There we go. All votes cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you.
You want me to do it?
Go ahead.
I move to reappoint Patricia Connell and Steve Hannon to the Planning Commission for 4-year terms ending April 30, 2022.
And that passes 7-0. Thank you.
I
Mr.
move
Pfeiffer.
to appoint Melissa Bauer to the Sustainability Advisory Committee for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2019, and Christina Gonzalez Avram and Philip Porter to the Sustainability Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021, and to reappoint Keegan Conley, Harriet Hall, Jeff Hallman, and Luke Ricard to the Sustainability Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
All votes cast. That passes 7-0. Next, I move to reappoint Paul Coos to the Transportation Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
And I move to ratify Mayor Williams' reappointment of Paul Cost to the Transportation Advisory Committee for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021.
Votes cast. That passes 7-0. Ms. Miller.
I move to reappoint, I was looking at the name going, Mr. Brown. What is it? Jadwiga Brown and David Wider to the Transportation Advisory Committee for 3-year term ending April 30th, 2021. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Okay, all votes cast. That passes 7-0. Let me make a note here that although we went through these relatively quickly in terms of the appointments, a lot of time went in by a lot of people who applied for these various boards and commissions. It's one of the most important things we do as a city council is to take this great pool of volunteers that we have in our city and try to align them in as many places as possible to get them onto our various boards and commissions. And it's an embarrassment of riches that we have so many great people who apply. The other embarrassment for us is that we can't appoint everybody, and so there was unfortunately a large number of people that we were not able to put into boards and commissions at this time. I urge them to continue to reapply, and that hopefully we can at some point take advantage of your talent and your skills, and I greatly appreciate the work that City Council put into the interview process. It can be tedious. There's a lot of resumes to review. We do a very quick interview with a select group of the applicants and make some very tough decisions from that. But we've, of course, in a lot of ways, they're easy decisions because we can take virtually anybody who applies and put them into a spot where they're going to benefit our city. So, again, thank you to council for your hard work, and thank you to all the people who applied, and congratulations to those who have been appointed. Next, we have the presentation of the 2017 Annual Financial Report. Mr. Archer?
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to present our financial report. Usually we clear the audience during the report, but I know a lot of them left, so they can watch this at home. Hopefully you all received this. This will be posted later on tonight. We're excited to report that revenues did end positive at the end of 2017. Lisa Yagi, Assistant Finance Director, will get into a little bit more detail on that. Expenditures are in line with the budget. In parens, I did put too close, and I would like to explain that. The general fund has approximately a $98 million budget. This year we spent $96 million, which leaves about a $2 million cushion. That's not too bad. But when you consider about 1.8 million of those dollars we will ask to carry forward into 2018 for projects that were not finished at the end of December, that leaves us $200,000. $200,000 on 98 million is 0.002%. To put that in perspective, that's 20 cents on $100. Needless to say, we managed our budget quite well, but a little too close for me. So we'll probably be talking a little bit more about that in this upcoming budget cycle, but I do want to commend my fellow department heads and their leaders at how well they managed their funds. Growth has continued, but at a slower pace. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in the next slide. So this is my favorite presentation to give each year because we get to talk a little bit about the performance, all the accomplishments of the various team members here at the City of Arvada. I do have a mistake on this slide, and so I'm going to apologize in advance.
We'll get started. We spent approximately $9.8 million on patching roads. We've heard over the past few years that we have an issue there. This number is a 300% increase since 2010, a 63% increase compared to last year, and an amazing amount of work that was accomplished in 1 year. We're looking to build upon that in 2018. The mistake I have on this slide is this next number. We actually produced a little over 50 million, almost 51 million in sales tax. The rest of the numbers are correct. We did issue 600 total building permits. That is down from 977 in 2016. 496 of those are single family, also down from 739 in 2016. So as you can see, building activity has slowed, though the activity inside the building and planning department did not. We talked all year about the May hailstorm. That effort continues as we are trying to get through all of the roofs. You still will see people working on their roof. We did issue 6,873 roofing permits. The yearly average is 1,700. So you can see this is quite a taxing effort on the members in those specific areas. Did produce almost $13.5 million in building revenue. That is the majority of our one-time funds. This time of the year, we present to City Council those one-time dollars. You just approved the first reading on that. We will come back to you in 2 weeks to talk about where we would like to propose some of that money be spent. This is a new performance measure, one that I was stunned to see, but the police department took this in stride. They responded to 1,116 emergency calls and 44,874 non-emergency calls. I cannot define the difference between the two. They can quite well, but you can see they are busy 24/7, 365. Unemployment stayed historically low at 2.7, and 14 out of the 15 funds meet your City Council established fund balance goals. The only one missing is the golf fund, which we knew going in that they would be below their fund balance because they chose to use some of that to put together the new clubhouse and to replace the irrigation system. In their 10-year model, they have a plan to get back above that, and we will present that during this 2019-2020 budget cycle. I did want to run through a couple of performance graphs. These are all in your presentation, will be online. The first one is related to our general fund balance goal, which is required to be 17% of total expenditures. As you can see, we are well above that number. The next is kind of exciting, related to healthcare. So our goal set over 5 years ago was to make annual increases less than 8%. By implementing the Paladina and all the work that HR has done, they've been able to get under that goal for the past 3 years. The next set of slides just builds a little bit upon the police department and some of the great that they are doing. A little bit on traffic accidents, and then a breakdown of the emergency calls by sector. Finally, I did want to highlight some of the efforts that are being made by the Housing Authority. We heard from them earlier tonight. We've been talking about the cost of rent and what that does to affordability. As you can see in this first graph, we're allowed to help 508 homes through our federal funding. Each year that number has gone down with the cost of rent going up due to that the federal funding has been flat. As you can see, by the end of 2017, we were only able to help 441 families. That is down from 2016 of 484, down from 2014 where we were helping 508. So each year this becomes more difficult. Mr. Talbot and his staff is working on ways to try to meet this need, and there may be some exciting news coming to you in the future.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so Brian, I mean, with the statement you just made, shouldn't we be looking at that target being adjusted related to the market? So in other words, this red line is based on what number? And do we ever account for change in the economy?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Councilmember Pfeiffer. That number is what's allowable versus what we think is reasonable.
And what's allowable set by
the federal government.
Federal government. So we don't have any say in that number.
We do not. We do not. We help as many as we can.
Okay. Thank you.
We can't go over 508 is basically what they tell us. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ms. Yagi.
Okay, we're going to talk about the general fund first, and that's the city's largest fund. And when we look at 2017, you can see that we pretty much had across the board positive results. On the revenue side, all of our major revenue categories had increased compared to last year, so that's a positive. Our personnel expenditures were below budget, and as Mr. Archer had talked before, our other expenditures we're monitoring. This is something we want to look at just to make sure that we don't exceed that budget in the future. So in the future, we may need to realign some of those expenditure line items. As we look a little bit deeper into some of the results on the general fund, sales tax, as you all know, is the primary source of revenue for the general fund. We group our sales tax into sales tax categories, and all of our categories compared to last year were positive. We have highlighted the health and specialty foods and the grocery chain stores. And the reason we highlighted those is we anticipate growth of about 3%. Both of these two categories were about 1.75, so just a little bit below budget. So that's why they're highlighted. Yep.
Quick question, Mayor. On the grocery chains and food, how are we accounting for Amazon and delivery services that may not come from a normal brick and mortar?
Those are in the
Online?
general department store category.
So we don't know what happens in that category with that trend.
Right, it's kind of, I don't see that general, what? Isn't it? Yeah, oh, okay. We don't have that category up there. So.
Is there a way with that new trend to track that?
Yeah, we can get you information.
Because even though
on
you're
that.
showing monitor anything with the specialty foods or grocery chains, I'd be interested if we add that category into, I don't know what we're going to call it, online groceries, but because we do collect sales tax off that, right? And,
yeah. It's very hard to separate on some of those, the groceries from the
actual
durable
purchases,
good type products. So generally, we just lump everything into general department stores, which is similar to like Target, Costco, those.
Oh,
those
because
type
they have
stores.
groceries and it kind of gets lumped in there.
Yes.
I think
yeah,
I'd be
so it's
interested in
little
just knowing that if this is a sales tax that's declining, is it being replaced by another category because of trended,
Okay.
activity in the market?
I think that's a good point, Mr. Pfeiffer, because I'm thinking a lot of those dollars are still being spent on groceries. They're just not being in the traditional grocery store or the health or specialty food stores.
Because I know we use that as the health of our economy, right? Like I know we look at a certain category, is one of the fast casuals or something like that, where if it starts declining, we know that the expendable income is declining, so therefore the economy is having an issue. So, I don't want us to say that there's an issue with grocery stores when we know that it's just being done differently now.
Yeah.
So any work around that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll take note of that.
Good point.
So again, in general, this category, we saw 5.6% growth. The other thing that we look at in sales tax, and we've not talked about too often previously, is we also track sales tax by geographical centers in the city. So when we look at 2017, 8 of our 13 centers in the city increased over last year, which I think is a good sign. And Old Town saw the biggest jump, which was a 25% increase over the prior year. So we're really starting to see the benefits of all the work and time that we put into Old Town, making that a place to visit. So we really do see the benefits of that in increased sales tax. The next large category is building revenue. And this revenue source increased 3.1% from last year. As Brian had mentioned, our single-family detached permits were 496. And this is actually a little bit of a decrease. It's the lowest point since 2013. So we're seeing a little bit of slowing in the permits. You do see that our building revenue had increased in 2017, and that's due to the hailstorm. So we see a lot of building roofing permits in 2017. So this next slide shows roofing permits for 2017 compared to the previous 5 years. And you can really see in the 3 to 4 months following the May hailstorm, the significant increase in the number of roofing permits compared to averages from previous years. So these are all the other funds in the city that we keep track of. As you can see, most of the funds have positive results. We would like to highlight 4 funds, and these are the 4 funds that we've really talked about throughout all of 2017. The first fund is the wastewater fund. And this one, we just have a monitor on revenues. The revenues for 2017 came in a little bit below budget. We're not too concerned because the expenditures and the fund balance in this fund are still sufficient to meet their needs. So we'll keep an eye on it, but not too much of a concern. The golf course fund, as we talked about, we did know going into 2017 that our revenues would be less than last year. During 2017, we only had 18 of the 27 holes open for play, so we saw about a 27% decrease in revenues. The one bright spot that we did see in golf is that the rounds of play for Lake Arbor increased 6%, so a little bit of a bright spot for Lake Arbor. We'll continue to monitor this fund into 2018, but we do expect to see a recovery in 2018 now that Westwood's clubhouse and the irrigation project are complete.
And boy, does that clubhouse look great.
It does. Okay. On the hospitality fund, again, we have a monitor on the revenues. The revenues finished the year a little bit below budget. Again, as in the wastewater fund, the expenditures are fine and the fund balance is fine. So we're just keep an eye on the revenues. And then on the risk management fund, we have a warning on the expenditures. This is because in 2017 we had higher than usual workers' comp claims, so we're going to keep an eye on that. And then we do have expenditures in 2018 related to repairs on vehicles and buildings that got damaged during the hailstorm. So we'll see some higher expenditures in 2018 also. Some of those, though, will be reimbursed through insurance proceeds, but we'll still keep an eye on this.
All right,
Mr. Pfeiffer.
I have a question. Sorry, I guess I'm filled with them tonight. Going to the Arvada events, the hospitality revenues and so forth, it didn't really highlight anything on why other than monitoring. Is there any more depth you can give on that revenue monitoring of what may or may not be causing them not to hit the revenue targets? What?
So
Westwood Clubhouse was closed.
Well, but I want clarity on that.
No, Westwood's Clubhouse only affects the golf fund, but
Yeah.
it's a good point, Councilmember Marriott. Ultimately, there's a couple items that led to that. One was the turnover of concessions from the Arvada events to the Arvada Center for the Arts and Humanities, and so that was a reduction in their budget. And another was just the reduced number of actual bookings happening at Arvada events.
So when we make a policy decision to affect the revenue fund, do we ever go and readjust their goal?
We do. There's times that we do adjust budgets. We try not to adjust budgets unless it is something that we can count on for certain.
So
in this case, it was a mid-year, and so we went ahead and finished the year out the way it
So even though
sits.
we said the revenue goes elsewhere, we didn't adjust their goal?
Internally, we did not, but we kept the budgets set that way for the audit.
Is there a problem not? Is there a
No.
problem
No.
to just readjust?
Nope, there's two different philosophies. One is you leave the budget as you set it and then reflect that and understand why, and another is you change as you know better.
And if we did make that adjustment, would that be a positive on the revenue?
It would change from a warning light to a positive light, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the next item we need to give an update on is related to investments. This has been kind of a quiet area for the last 4 years, but we are seeing some movement. Ultimately, there's a couple of areas I'd like to point your attention to. One is related to the consolidated portfolio. So you will notice that the largest change is related to time CDs, and these are bank CDs. And this was a conscious decision made by the finance department. In 2015, 2016, we were able to get a better rate of return through bank CDs. But now as interest rates rise, we are taking advantage of the additional debt that is being taken on by corporates and agencies and moving that money out of bank CDs and trying to get a greater return. The second item I'd like to point your attention to relates to our portfolio performance. As you can see, we are now at a 1.29% or almost 1.3%. Seems pretty little, but we're quite excited considering in 2013 that number was 0.53, and last year, as you can see, that number was 1%. So we see continued growth. We are expecting continued growth, but we are below our benchmark. So you will notice our benchmark is at 1.43%. Last year it was at 0.9%. We made the decision to change our benchmark. Every year we were over our benchmark because we were using a composite, which basically means we were just taking a whole bunch of various numbers and adding them together and assuming that that's how we were going to invest. Instead of doing that, we have decided to benchmark ourselves against the S&P 1 to 5 year agency, and we will most likely be under that number every year. The reason is that is calculated monthly. We have a philosophy of holding to maturity, and so we do have some items in our portfolio that are going to pay us a lower rate. But as they roll out, we'll be able to take advantage and try to raise those items up. Finally, we do know that we had 3 rate hikes in 2017.
Mr. Jones has a question
Sorry.
for you.
Sorry. Well, maybe you'll answer my question. So I'll let you finish and then I'll answer or ask my question.
Okay. We did have 3 rate hikes in 2017 and 1 so far in 18 with 2 more proposed throughout the year. And so we're hoping to be able to take advantage of those rate marks. So you will see as our portfolio moves, we will come a little bit off of our short-term philosophy and move a little bit out on the curve. So Councilmember Jones?
So you didn't, but it was a good try. So in looking at the portfolio allocation, from an investment strategy, obviously we've got in the U.S. agency fund or portfolio, is there any further diversification of those monies, or is that's where you're saying you're kind of hitching your wagon right now is to that fund?
It's our best rate of return right now. As we see increases in yield, we'll move them around, but that just certainly is our best. And then the agency is a conglomerate of a whole bunch, and so individual items were limited to no more than 5% of our portfolio, so there's much more depth under each one of those.
And I should probably know the answer to this question, but is there a maximum amount of density in each fund? Like say you can only in one portfolio allocation, you can only invest 50%, or is there a maximum amount for diversification needs?
I'm going to ask Ms. Yagi to come up and make sure I don't make a mistake on this one.
We have both issuer and concentration limits, so we have a percent not to go over by issuer and then by type of investment.
Okay.
So generally 5%. No more than 5% of the portfolio.
Right.
To be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So in summary, we do know that we need to continue to work on our infrastructure. We've talked a lot about roads. That will be a continued conversation in the 2019-2020 budget. We're excited to add conduit and fiber. The IT department has been working incredibly hard along with the Public Works and planning departments to make sure that we take advantage of co-locates and try to get our fiber ring put together. We've talked a little bit about building activity slowing down. We're still above our average, but we're fully expecting to move back to that mean, maybe as soon as 2019. The transit hub is open. We're hoping the G line is next. We're hearing some really good things out of there, maybe sometime this summer. And so we're hoping to see some of the fruits of our labor down there to continue to show up. And then finally, we will be back to you in 2 weeks to talk about our one-time funds. We're really hoping none of these are new. We've talked about these in talked about these in October. at our 2018 budget, and again in January at your council retreat. Any further questions that we can answer?
Any other questions from council? Mr. McGough?
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering, I read just in the Denver Post last week that that auto sales are going down. Have we noticed that yet in our, I see we're still positive on our auto use tax, but are we noticing?
We have not. We were fully expecting auto use tax and auto sales to pull back in 2017, and they went the other way. We're thinking a lot of that has to do with the hail. We're actually working right now with the state of Colorado to try to get additional information to see if we can quantify whether that is related to the hail, whether that is related to the new people coming into the city, but we're not seeing a pullback. Everybody else is, and so we're obviously a little worried about that.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions.
Thank you
for your report. Okay, let's do a very quick stand in place. Good idea. Thank you for that. With that, I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 18010, an ordinance increasing the size of the Board of Directors of the Old Town Arvada Business Improvement District, adding provisions related to the length of terms and term limits. Mr. Bill Ray, or someone? Maybe Mr. Daly. Can you speak to this?
Sure, I'll speak to it. Thank you, Mayor and members of Council. You'll recall that on December 8th, 2014, Council held a workshop on the status of the Old Town Business Improvement District, and during the workshop, a request was made by the current BID board to increase the size of the Board of Directors from 5 to 7. And then in February of 2015, Council approved an ordinance that amended Section 5 of Council Bill 1426 by adding 2 additional seats to the Board of Directors. And on November 29th, 2017, the bid board requested the City Council to consider a motion to allow the bid to further expand to 9 members. To accomplish this, staff is recommending to council that you consider amending the original ordinance to allow for the statutory range of at least 5 members, but no more than 11 members to the BID board. Members will still be appointed to the board at the pleasure of the council, and giving the city council flexibility it needs in order to appoint the appropriate number of bid board members. This ordinance also staggers the terms for the board and sets term limits to create a balance of experienced and newly engaged bid board members.
Very good. Is there any member of the public that would like to provide testimony on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for city council question or action. Ms. Ford?
I'd like to make a motion if there are no
You may
questions.
proceed.
I move that CB 18-010, an ordinance increasing the size of the Board of Directors of the Old Town Arvada Business Improvement District, adding provisions, am I good? Yes. Adding provisions relating to the length of terms and term limits be approved on final reading, numbered 4626, and ordered published by title only.
Thank you. And Mr. Marriott would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to comment on the motion. I am all for this. I think the bid board does a very important work in Old Town Arvada. It's very important that they're diverse in makeup of and experience, and I think this particular ordinance giving us the flexibility to make that board more effective is good for everybody, so I'll be voting yes.
Very good. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, open the public hearing on Council Bill 18011, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 18, Buildings and Building Regulations of the Arvada City Code through adoption of general and administrative provisions and the adoption by reference of the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Residential Code, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, the 2015 International Fuel Gas Code, the 2015 International Mechanical Code, the 2015 International Plumbing Code, the 2009 International Property Maintenance Code, and 2014 National Electrical Code, and the adoption of penalties for violations thereof. Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As the title itself indicates, is that the process of updating our various building codes is a long and complicated process. As you will recall, last August, that the council did adopt these ordinances or series of regulations and standards. It is typical, and it has been typical of the city, that in the course of doing that is that we do adopt certain local amendments to those uniform and standard codes. The reason why this ordinance is before you tonight is that in the course of going through this, there are several issues that we failed to address or omissions that we had intended to do, but have caught up with that. Those primarily involved the otherwise requirement that there be fire sprinklers in 1- and 2-story dwelling units. Council in the past has chosen not to move forward with this relatively new provision, and we want to ensure that that stays that way. And we have also made a number of local amendments to the International Property Maintenance Code, which also need to be reincorporated into the current version. I would note that, as in the cover sheet is said, that this, the fact that we did not catch these at that time has not resulted in any undue burden to any particular development or building permit that's been issued in the interim since the adoption. We're simply here as a matter of ensuring that we have accurately reflected those past amendments that the council has adopted. Mr. Reed-Bensing is here and would answer any particular questions you have on any of the particular amendments, should council desire.
Very good. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open up for City Council question or action. Mr. Jones?
Make a motion if there's no questions.
You may proceed.
I move that Council Bill 18-011, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 18, Buildings and Building Regulations of the Arvada City Code through adoption of the general and administrative provisions and the adoption by reference of the 2015 International Building Code, the 2015 International Residential Code, the 2015 International Energy Conservation Code, the 2015 International Existing Building Code, the 2015 International Fuel Gas Code, the 2015 International Mechanical Code, the 2015 International Plumbing Code, the 2009 International Property Maintenance Code, the 2014 National Electrical Code, and the adoption of penalties for violations thereof be approved on final reading numbered 4627 and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval? All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 18012, an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the establishment of self-storage businesses. Mr. Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As the council is aware that over the previous several years, there's been a desire to see the number of self-storage units that were allowed in the city to increase. I would note that over the previous 10 years prior to July of 2016, that the city had processed a grand total of 2 self-storage applications. But since the adoption of this office, we have seen a fair increase of that and currently received 5. I think that council fairly has wanted to reassess what the potential impacts of the adoption of that ordinance. And so to that end, staff is proffering to you an ordinance that would impose a 6-month moratorium for council to further investigate and study the potential impacts of the July 2016 ordinance.
Okay, is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open up for council question or action. Mr. Pfeiffer.
I just have a question, and I'd like to make the motion if there's not any other questions.
Reserve the motion?
Real quick, I'm assuming the moratorium's for no new permit requests.
That is correct, council member, and we currently have none in the pipeline.
You answered my questions, so I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move that Council Bill 18-012, an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the establishment of self-storage businesses, be approved on final reading number 4628 and order published by title only.
Motions for approval. I do want to speak to this motion. We have, as a council, not liked to see the use of moratoriums. However, this was a situation where we really did think that we needed to take some more time to look at these. The reality of self-storage is that once the self-storage facility goes in, it's virtually going to stay there forever because they're really good money generators for the people who put them in. Unfortunately, they don't generate any sales tax, and it takes land that might be better used for other types of things if it's a use by right that causes some issue. And then we've also had, as we've had with the recent hearing, conflicts between residential areas and these self-storage facilities, particularly because of the new style of self-storage, which look more like an office building, frequently 3 stories high. They look nicer than the old-fashioned types of self-storage, but we thought it would be appropriate to sort of take a pause, have staff look into this, and we didn't want to adversely affect potential applicants by having them go through a process and then ultimately be turned down for any number of reasons. And so this was a approach that we thought about, had some discussions about, and apparently by a 7-0 vote, we've decided to impose that moratorium at this point. Next, I'll open Council Bill 18014, an ordinance vacating a portion of public right-of-way within the Coldway subdivision located at approximately 6250 Independence Street, Fitzmaurice Elementary School. Mr.
Thank
Ray.
you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I will ask our Community Development Director, Rita McConnell, to lead this conversation.
Has never been utilized for access, which was the intended purpose with the original 1955 plat. In 1960, the Fitzmaurice Elementary School was built over the right-of-way as well as over platted lots. With the recent addition of an Apex facility building on this site that would also encroach on the right-of-way, the decision was made by city staff to process the variance application, or I'm sorry, the vacation application. The minor plat to vacate the platted lots is also in process at this time. This vacation request will not impede the planned traffic flow through this neighborhood. The request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, in particular, the transportation element of that plan. Staff does recommend approval of this request. Planning Commission voted 6 in favor with 1 absent. I have received the affidavit of mailing and posting log, and they are in order. Will Tucker is representing the city as the applicant, and as well as being the planner too, and he is available for questions.
The posting log and affidavit will be made part of the record. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for City Council question or action. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that Council Bill 18-014, an ordinance vacating a portion of public right-of-way within the Coldway subdivision located at approximately 6250 Independence Street, Fitzmaurice Elementary School, be approved on final reading, numbered 4629, and ordered published by title only. This motion is based on the findings of fact adopted by the Planning Commission.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. The portion is hereby vacated. Next, we have public comment. Any member of the public wish to address this at this time? Seeing none, I'll close that, and let's do the appointments to the bid board. Does someone have that? Ms. Ford.
Let's see here. I move, subject to approval of Ordinance 4626, to appoint Charlie Berger and Karen Wood to the Old Town Business Improvement District, the bid board, said appointments to be effective upon the effective date of Ordinance 4626.
Very good. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, City Council reports. Ms. Ford, you're first.
I'd like to remind residents that on April 4th, the Arvada Steering Committee for the Arts and Culture Commission will be presenting some of the updates and survey work on their on what they would like to see in terms of goals for the city of Arvada, and that will be held at Westwood's Clubhouse, 6655 Quaker Street, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. as an open house.
Okay, Mr. Pfeiffer.
Couple things for you tonight. First off, I had to jump around, so you're going to have to bear with me. I have a few announcements. From a Dr. Cog perspective, this month we have our annual awards banquet on April 25th, and I encourage all of council to be there because we are being distinguished in several different things, or 2 things, I should say, not several. One is the MetroVision Award. I wanted to get the exact details. The MetroVision Award, we're being recognized for that, but also an employee is being recognized here in the city of Arvada. That's Bob Manwaring for receiving a Distinguished Service Award from Dr. Cog for all of his years dedicated to the region. I want to congratulate Mr. Manwaring for his dedication to Dr. Cog in the region and encourage council to attend that evening as well. Let's see, I also wanted to bring up from the Transportation Committee, we've canceled the last one, but couple good things coming out of it. I'm going to host now I work for CDOT, I'm going to host them over at the Operations Center so they can get a tour, and I had the pleasure of Mrs. Miller, to come over to my office and get a tour of what our Operations Center looks like from a traffic. And so I'm going to expand that to the employees and the Transportation Committee to come and see an Operations Center, which
How about City Council?
City Council's more than welcome to come, just as long as there's not more than one of you. Otherwise, I got to post it. But I think where I wanted to go is I do encourage all of you to come, and if we do need to post, that's fine too, because when we talk about fiber and we talk about how these things are coming together, one of the things I realized within our efforts here, the fiber is not good in the city until you hook something to it. I'm not sure we've decided what to hook to it, and I'm looking to staff just yet. We have several ideas, and I hope they grow, because there's so much neat technology out there about moving operationally traffic through the system instead of widening roads everywhere. This is kind of my new thing. I like to leverage technology to maximize the roadway, because one, it's about 20% of the cost of building the road if you can leverage technology to do the improvement from an operations perspective. So it's a lot cheaper, get more bang for your buck. So if anyone's ever interested, even I don't care if the public wants to come, it's an open invite to everyone to see what goes on. And it's really going to be fascinating, because what will be happening at that operations center, and this is something we got to look regionally when we talk about like the 911 center, State Patrol and state, even possibly Denver and a few others, are all going to put their operations center in one place so they can help move traffic through the whole region. And of course, Dr. Cogg's very interested in that, because it's a centralized way of improving traffic and safety. So I just want to share that with council. It's kind of neat. It's kind of multifaceted. And then let's see what else. Oh, also there is, and this is one thing I told Mary Jo I would do, is bring up the melodrama. And I can't find it right here. I will tell you, the Arvada Jefferson Kiwanis melodrama, which I've never really brought up, but I was part of Arvada Jefferson Kiwanis. The melodrama is great. It's the Kiwanians who do the acting themselves. It's fun. It's funny. I always worked the food area, so I was always in the kitchen. But it is really a good event. It raises a lot of good money, and all that money comes back in helping the community. And so if folks are interested, this year it's the Great Ice Cream Scheme. It's on Friday, April 13th, and Saturday, April 14th at the Shrine St. Anne's School on 57th and Upham. Dinner's at 6, the play's at 7. Tickets are only $15, and it includes the dinner, beer, soda, brats, beans. I mean, it includes everything. It's a cheap night to go out and have fun, bring the kids. There's ice cream, popcorn, and if you have information on the tickets, I'm just going to say the phone number. It's easier, 303-421-2032. It really does help and come back into the community. So I told Mary Jo I'd do that.
Good. And if you don't do things for Mary Jo, it comes back to get you. John? That's right. Mr. Marriott?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have two quick things. One of these was from a little while ago, but we haven't had a meeting where we've been able to do council reports. And that is, back in early March, I attended the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. on the behalf of the city of Arvada. It was a good sessions. I attended a number of sessions, particularly around affordable housing. In addition to that, we had a day where we toured around Washington, D.C. and visited with several of the organizations around Washington, D.C. We started at the Urban Land Institute, had a very good discussion on a number of topics that are very relevant to cities like Arvada. From there, we moved on to a real interesting group called the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. And they sat us all down as groups and gave us a handout and said, here, you've solved the federal budget, which I'll note all 7 tables were able to do in about 20 minutes. So the wrong people may be in Washington, I'm just saying. And then from there we went to another interesting group, the regulatory agency that regulates and rates municipal bonds. And again, an interesting tour, very good information about what happens when municipalities issue bonds and how the kind of the background part of that bonding stuff goes. The following day, had breakfast with both of our 2 senators, and we talked about issues relevant to both us and the cities around us. So I think it was very worthwhile, and I would encourage my fellow council members to attend that conference in the future if they can. Second thing I'll bring up is I'm on the board of the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District. The Urban Drainage and Flood Control District is going to go to the ballot this fall to restore their mill levy to 1 mill. So when the district was created back in the 1970s, they were awarded a 1 mill levy on all properties within the district. Due to the interplay between the Gallagher Amendment and the Tabor Amendment, that mill levy is now 0.62 or something like that, and the district has a very large backlog of flood control projects to do, some of them here in Arvada. Of course, the district has proven to be very effective at dealing with these local flood issues. And so the decision's been made to approach the voters and ask to be the mill levy restored to 1 mill and then kept there. So it's simply bringing the mill levy back to where it was. Would change our budget from about $32 million a year up to about $50 million a year. So that's the report from there.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, you're next.
Thank you. A couple of weeks back, I referenced the Jefferson County School Safety event that was held on March 20th, and Ms. Miller and I have the opportunity to serve on the R1 School District Coordinating Committee with a couple of school board members and our superintendent. But I just wanted to give you a brief update on that meeting. It was actually very well attended with multiple agencies involved that came and represented their respective cities and all police chiefs or the sheriff. And our interim police chief, Ed Brady, was there and did a fabulous job. But I just wanted to share a couple of things that in a letter that he sent to the principals that I think is important to highlight our department and the work that they do around school safety. And this is, I'm quoting from his letter. "I'm proud to work in a department with other county law enforcement agencies and school district that have been instrumental in enhancing school safety. As a department and as a county, we have led the way in creating rescue task force and single officer response protocols for responding officers. Additionally, in conjunction with the I Love You Guys Foundation, we have created a standard response protocol for our schools. The city of Arvada has nearly 29 schools. Each of our high schools and 3 middle schools have assigned school resource officers. We have 1 elementary school resource officer who works primarily in southeast Arvada. Knowing that we can't visit every school every day, they have set performance measures of providing school patrols by patrol officers. So our patrol officers in 2017 conducted 518 school patrols, which helped to enhance the school safety and officer presence. I just want to publicly thank our police department for the work that they do, not just protecting our community in general, but for the work that they do to protect our schools and the children at our schools. We've had a lot of very unfortunate events happen in our schools, but being a parent and having 2 kids in high school, I feel very safe knowing that our police department is there and working with Jefferson County Schools to make sure that they are safe. So again, I just wanted to thank our police department and the efforts that they make every single day.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you. So the update that I have is to promote the Talk and Rock that I've been doing down at Klein's on the 2nd Saturday of every month from 3 to 4. Hang out with me and the other community members that come. We usually have a speaker. And this month, April 14th, I'm going to do the first 100 days of being a city council person and what that's like. So we're going to talk about that. And then I've got the Visitor Center here in Arvada putting together what fun there is to do in Arvada, low cost or no cost, all throughout the summer, starting as early as that morning at the car show at Sancio. So Friday you can go to the Melodrama. Saturday morning you go over to Sancio to the car show, come to Talk and Rock, dance a little bit to the Duke Street Kings, and then if you missed the Melodrama on Friday night, you can go back on Saturday night. I mean, seriously, it's right around the corner. So 2nd Saturday of every month except for June. And then on May 12th, the band that's following Talk and Rock is the Born to Run Live Bruce Springsteen tribute band. So Ken Feldman, if you're watching, check it out.
Good. Mr. Pfeiffer?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for the second bite. I just want to add to Mr. Jones' comments because I don't think we realize how special our department is. I mean, let me just elevate the comments. We have now Commander DeAndrea, who is a internationally known expert in, unfortunately, school shootings and mass shootings, and we have him here, and you'll see him on national news and local news when these unfortunate events happen, and he is serving our community, and we have him here right in our our city. And if anyone has ever met him, he is a great individual and a very dedicated police officer. So, he really is innovative when he comes to thinking. He takes it passionately. And also, I applaud our police department and our fire district, who also have come up with innovative ways to address, unfortunately, the same thing, which is these types of shootings, by being very aggressive in saving lives when those happen, and have created new protocols and methods in which they really do try to minimize if that event ever happens. And what I applaud is these departments coming together, collaborating, police officers and firefighters collaborating, and coming up with solutions that sometimes are just going to be outside of their control. And I applaud that we have that kind of staff here, and we have a fire district that is working with us to unfortunately address this. So I just wanted to elevate how lucky we are to have these individuals. It's just unfortunate we have to have these individuals in our community to protect. But again, I agree with Mr. Jones. I applaud our department. So thank you.
Very good. A couple things. We have had a request from the West Connect group to do a letter in support of, Mr. Ray, if you could explain that a little
Certainly.
bit.
For about the last 2.5 years, CDOT, in cooperation with a number of Western Metro local governments, all the way from Boulder down to the edge of Douglas County, really, have been working in trying to establish a preliminary environmental linkage, which would cover future expansions on C-470, US 6, and Highway 93, all the way up to Marshall Road in Boulder County. As a result of that, there has been a broad consensus among all the local governments in terms of the types of improvements that need to occur over time. We've studied in depth the environmental, the safety, the wildlife, the historic, the archaeological, all the implications of those improvements. And what we have done, in essence, is kind of come to a broad pre-approval process that as money becomes available, we will be able to move these much quicker than normally would be true through the state CDOT process. The conclusion of that meeting is next Monday, and we have been requested, if appropriate, and staff does believe it's true, to come out in support of what those conclusions are that are contained within the West Connect process. It's been very long. I think, Mayor, you would agree. It's been very thorough. It's been very complete. Both Bob Manwaring and I have been privileged to work on the technical committee. I think it's a good process, and I think it's one we can support.
So I would ask for your all's consent for me to sign a letter endorsing the plan moving forward. Everybody okay with that? Very good. A couple other things. I want to publicly thank the citizens of Arvada for helping put some pressure on the Public Utilities Commission. It was very obvious that the commissioners had been feeling that pressure as it pertains to the G line, and several of them made some comments to that effect, and we finally have the necessary Public Utilities Commission's approvals, and as I understand it, testing is becoming much more frequent. Is that true, Mr. Marriott? Yep. And so we are moving forward with the testing through the RTD. I've got a meeting scheduled this Thursday with representatives of Denver Transit Partners to get an update in terms of scheduling and maybe get a glimpse of when we're going to get our train. So I will keep you all posted on that. Finally, I've mentioned this to council, and I would ask our citizens to have their thoughts and prayers for Mayor Steve Hogan in Aurora. It's public now that he does have cancer, and he certainly needs our thoughts and prayers as he deals with what he's dealing with. He's been a true champion for the metropolitan area and exemplifies why our metropolitan area is so different from so many other parts of the country, because our city councils and our mayors and county commissioners and everybody through Dr. Cog, through Metro Mayors, through CML, truly do want to work together for the betterment of our communities, and Steve Hogan certainly exemplifies that. So with that, Mr. Ray, anything else you've got?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just note that in the month of April, you have 2 workshops upcoming. The one on next Monday, we will cover the topics of giving you a progress report on our organizational development efforts, and we will, as Mr. Archer had alluded to, continue the conversation about our CIP and financing discussion. On April 23rd, we will be presenting a discussion on the Arts and Cultural Master Plan. We will have a discussion about our community visiting project, and also review, as you have directed us to do in your January retreat, to review and update your strategic plan. So that will be our 2 workshops in April.
Very good. Mr. Daly? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.